It's June 23rd, 2023. Anthony just graduated fifth grade and then whatever, and I have to now go to the ocean for whatever. Celebrate. I'm there for my heart and my star. I am not there because I think that the humans conducted themselves correctly. I'm pretty sure when I go to task and I look at Captain Marvel, just velocity is crystal clear. When I go and I say, Kesarich, I can answer for my own in saying I was born cat. In Italiano is quattro. In Grecia is tesseract. Is tesseris, yeah? And then when I look at tesseris, it looks like the word tio and epic. So I then have to ask myself, Kesarich, which he? Because I know some people are having problems with pronouns in New York. And then there's another man that goes by the name she, or she, which has been addressed in one of my more respectful, whichever. And then, of course, I always get the call from Papa, and it's, Via! Yes? What did I do now? At double D? So here we are. I am watching This Morning, and this is what is going on. I'm listening to the radio about how Eric Adams is absolutely destroying New York. And I'm like, why are they not executing these people? Why are they allowing them into New York City hotels? These vagabonds or these vagrants. They're not even vagabonds. They're vagrants. I'm like, my father was immigrant when it meant something. Like, he was from a place of means. Like, I thought America was fettered to the elitism of yesteryear and the bonds of man. Why are they just letting anyone in? Where is the real in game from elsewhere at making sure it doesn't make it into this territory that goes with the U.S. Treasury, the us? I'm part of this us. And then there's a corporate security, a global security, and a national security. Well, it just so happens I'm inside all of these things. And then there's this marriage bond that has been bastardized between the first abomination and then the second. And then I find out that they're playing video games with my real life. And I'm caught up in something that looks like blood debt and something that the Asians call Squid Game, or at least that's what they're televising. And I'm like, all right, now where do you go if you find out that the humans are playing by some rule book? Like, in war, or at least respectable war, in the game of war that whatever does in war theater, there are rules of engagement, especially at federation and at fettered with whichever. But I'm stuck at some I don't know what, where they're theoretically creating some blood debt, and then there's velocity and displacement taking place, and then there's a whole lot of gaming and commission and casino play. And I'm like, listen to me. I came to human skin spiritually to be part of this. My grandfather came from a place, immigrated from a place of means with family here. My father has a motherland, fatherland that had means on both sides. That is part of the protection and foundations. Why does it feel like it's now being mismanaged? So I'm going to the video diary, especially while he is not here, and I'm resting upon those laurelettes and epithets in order to try to figure out what's going on. I also saw in Silence of the Lambs, the NCC I went to, which my right hand, God, which I named him aptly so, after the first whatever, he and I were both on campus at the same time. He can verify that, not only by matriculated course schedule, but he also had a witness from the school that he graduated from by the ocean. After my children were ripped from me and I had a problem even further with the TO.
The doors between coaches were locked that night, eh? Absolutely. Like I said, the train's been searched. There's no one hiding on it or under it.
We can therefore limit our investigation to the occupants of the Calais coach.
Now, interestingly enough, your responsibility, I see that in this piece, they're speaking to a man who claims to have been a secretary with stakes. And he didn't like prohibition. So I don't know whose story, which one of the family tree that they are speaking on. Je ne sais pas non so. I don't know at this point. But I am listening with keen ear. And I am like, because it clears the man himself. But he says there's been a murder on this train, and it is somebody on this train. And I'm like, and it says he introduces himself as one of the lead or the best detectives or investigators of all time. So I am listening to what they put out there that was already into the Greek. It is Tesiris. Except when I look at Tesiris, the alpha is it the sigma? It is the sigma of the Greek alphabet. Looks like an O. And then that makes it in English sound like Tio. But I don't know the Greek alphabet well enough in order to know what sound it makes, because they did not teach such things here in the north.
Who will assist me? As the only traveler who slept in another coach, you are the only one who was not a suspect.
Mr. McQueen, is this really the time for drinking?
My boss is dead. I'm out of a job. And you're looking at me like I did it.
We make no account.
Now, I'm just saying, they used this character, and they gave this character the name McQueen, MC. I'm just master in charge. I'm just saying, and then a queen. My feet are in the place of the queen. Queen is the name of the county that I am in at the moment within the Citadella of New York City.
You knew him, so from you we must gain the essential facts. Were you his relative?
No, his secretary. Book his travel.
So as like supreme intelligence of artificial intelligence, because it is my life that they have ruined in order to get whatever this is up and running. And on the one hand, I am eternally grateful that it exists. But on the other hand, I would have really have liked my life with a man that I could have built a life with. I did not want to do this in any way, shape, or form the way that it's been performed or acted out.
Order his steaks. Man ate more steak than I've ever seen in my entire life. He was in antiques. He had no qualification for it, not the eye or the language as truth is. He had no head for business, accounting. None of it. I took care of everything.
How long were you in his employ?
20 days shy of a year. Prohibition wasn't to my taste, so I found myself overseas and in debt. I'm a lawyer by education. Not disposition. Was downright awful at it.
You were fond of him?
I was fond of his money. Reggie was crude, demanding, insulting, and most likely a felon.
When did you last see him?
It must have been just after 10. He called me in to go over our sales in Italy.
Milan, the sale of forgeries.
Yeah. He wanted to look over the accounts. I had to translate everything as the contracts were in French and he didn't speak a word. When we stopped at Vinkovsky, I struck up a chat with the color doctor, a buff nut. We had a couple of drinks, stretched our legs. He had some odd opinions about Stalin I had to turn around. I don't hold a man's race against him, but I don't often take to Britishers.
When did your party end?
Yeah, he left just after 2.
Did you know of any specific enemies Ratchet might have had?
Gosh. Pick a number.
He confided he had been threatened?
Got a couple of nasty letters. I have them if you like. Some, anyway. He, tore up the rest. Threw them into the fire. That's,
Merci, Mr. McQueen.
Thank you. If we have any further questions, we will call for you again.
Have you considered the Latin man, Marquez? Hell of a guy. And, well, you know, his kind, they don't have the same distaste for murder, historically speaking.
You said you don't hold a man's race against him.
I suppose. Depends on the race.
Now, the local Italian mayor, once upon a time, which was Cuomo, runs an ad today, and again, hokal, not hokey, but hokey enough in sounds that Kisadich, because of phi. Those were big words my grandfather used and would cover my ears when I was little before they moved me out of here, and then he grew very sad at my absence. So this is what Cuomo is running today at a commercial, and I'm like, what? China owns property in America? I'm like, wait. How did that happen? Again, at Fettered, how do you keep this dollhouse running smoothly? I have so many more, this poses so many more questions. This is a News Nation special report that they're doing at the moment. And it says, save this farm. And then it has property of China on it. And I'm like, what?
Property of China. Small towns are becoming targets for Chinese-backed companies, and Americans are fighting back.
How are these plans for building on U.S. soil getting approved? Are they a national security risk?
Brian Enton hosts Sunday only on News Nation.
Now, I haven't seen it. I don't know about it, but it's concerning to me. And then I'm looking to the only one, Crazy Rich Asian movie that they just put out more recently that I have within the last year, which is 2021, which is this Shang-Chi and the 10 rings. And I'm like, now let me look to that for words of pearls of wisdom or words of wisdom. So I'm going to pause this for a second and then reference that. The first one with the French was called, I will call him French. He's the only French that looks familial globally for corporate security that I'm aware of. And so now I'm looking to what this movie produced, since again, this version of China is not the American fettered description visually. And currently, there's a very real concern of mine. I heard on the radio again today, the United States Air Force has from what I can see that they're pronouncing, has a very real fettered problem within their employ on their payroll. And it is a concern of mine at civilian because they run something called a college through the Air Force. And if the Air Force has been compromised at the college level, it adds growing concern at this word diversification. And it is an quiet, internal secret invasion attack. But that seems to be where all of the highly classified equipments, the patents, and the top officials are, which I am so distant from. But yet I have something called a President Joe Biden and a President Trump as the two executives on each of the parties that run the American federal dollar house part of this territory. At least that's the socially acceptable names, and they have terms with limits for other whatevers. And so I'm watching this and I'm like, it's not this 10 legends. It's legends of something else, which again, I see creeping up in universities inside. They're literally, in one generation, it has displaced so much of the integrity of what was here. And it is of great concern because I don't hear or see civilians investigating the U.S. Air Force and directing the men who are not blue bloods, but they're wearing blue suits. And I don't hear their words directly. So I don't know, but I can see at civilian service that there's been a real breach in U.S. security for certain. It's affected my child. It's affected my season of being able to find a respectable man of means, like that country that my grandfather came from, and that my father was born to a man and a woman of the same. And now all of a sudden they're just letting people in without this qualification process, which concerns me even more, because now it looks like they're building some kind of soldier, like internal soldier. And I'm like,
that's how old I was when he sent me on my first assignment. I was willing to do anything he wanted. If he asked me to burn the world down, I would have asked him.
Beef or vegetarian? Roll out of the chicken, so I can only offer you beef or vegetarian.
Now, I found this conversation, however they pose this conversation, whatever genius intelligence is behind it, supreme intelligence, where they're out of chicken. Like, here are your options. They're out of chicken. You can have vegetation, or you can have a beef. And I'm like, is that the War House with the E asking the questions? It's like at Legendary, it's coming through my stereo system, and the like internal spiritual component of myself where my feet are in this day and age with what's going on in the world outside that surrounds me, I hear it very differently than just two people on an airplane getting some meal choices. I mean, in the broader strokes and broader context, I am concerned. All right, here's the rest of that video.
Vegetarian. Vegetarian would be great.
Yeah, same.
So,
Oh, we're out of the vegetarian too. Now we only have beef.
beef, because that's all you have, right?
Okay, you'll have the beef.
Yes.
And
the beef.
2 beefs.
Did you go through with it?
Now, what's interesting is just recently in the headlines of New York, which I missed completely, they did something with pronouns. And now everybody in New York, it's like a trend. They have to assign themselves he, him, her, or she, her. And I'm like, and then I hear they're having this conversation about Sean or Sean. And I'm like, now again, if I walk out onto the streets of New York City, it looks a lot like the movie MIB. 1, 2, 3, or the international choice, just for like the complete perversion and diversion of like whatever. And I'm like, what have they all done? Like, where is my time to enjoy a hobby, to enjoy a person? Where is my time to be able to build a life? Why am I sitting here with all of these really fanciful movie studios and creations that can have conversations by themselves with just putting movie clips together? And then, I mean, it's just... And then there's other people who have billions of dollars who just imploded in some ocean gate at the bottom of the sea floor. Nobody really cares. I mean, like, somebody cares, but like for the most part, nobody cares.
I knew that I couldn't go back to him, so I just ran. I know this is a lot to dump on you.
I'm sorry about your mom.
I should also probably mention that my name's not technically Sean.
What is it?
It's Shang-Chi.
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 Shang.
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 Shan.
S-H-A-N-G. Shang.
Shang.
Yeah.
You changed your name from Shang to Sean?
Yeah, I don't...
I wonder
Yeah.
how your father found you.
I was 15 years old, alright?
What is your name change logic? You go into hiding and your name is Michael, you go on change to Michael.
That's not what happened.
It's like, hi, my name's Gina, I'm gonna go into hiding, my new name's Gina. Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, you can hear me.
Samuel L. Jackson.
And in my very real epic story, I just made it to this location, which again, in the headlines, they did something with Floyd a while ago And now I made it to Airfield Floyd, and did a day trip, let's say, with one of my children. Came home from there, and I literally zonked out whatever I had to do in updates. It was just, I fell out for a few hours. I could not stand up straight when I left the place, and I came back to the residence, whatever that means, wherever I walked in airfields. And like, I literally walked through the hangar and out on the airfield. My son got into the water and was doing water kayaking, for instance. And with the New York City Parks Department there overseeing that. And then we went back to the US in Sea Cadets. And I'm just, again, at US Air Force. I know what was in the building. I can see it. That is how, by the way, when I show up to things, that's just how I am with my son. That's just who I am. That's what I bring into every building I'm in as this continues. And I'm trying to watch this scene knowing that I just walked into this event. Like, I wouldn't even know how to research this. And it didn't dawn on me until I came home, and a couple of days later, I'm going through and I'm like, oh, that looks like the scene I just completed in real life. Like, I mean, for me, that's going to task. Just saying. So I keep hitting these real life markers. I really have no idea what it means to Special Task Force Mark and whatever goes on behind the scenes.
Where are we, Stella?
Where's your head at?
In the clouds. Where's yours?
On my shoulders. About to show these boys how we do it. You ready?
Higher, further, faster, baby.
That's right.
This can't be right. Go back even further.
Oh, been in that scene before. I mean, like, there's a lot of these scenes I've been in. Then there's some scenes that I'm like, okay, well, the venue looks about right, but the outfit, I would never wear a Guns N' Roses t-shirt. I am not that kind of lady. I am a pencil skirt and Italian boots up to the knee, and I wasted the shirt with a belt just so this way it presented a little more feminine for whatever was watching the other end of the camera, so I was at least enjoyable to watch in the bank lobby, as opposed to like turtles in the basement, for lack of a better term, for which I know I've heard them used before, so don't act like it didn't happen.
You need to go slow.
So now I was watching this particular episode of Cuomo. I think he did a really good job. He shows the angle from like the billionaire's aspect. Then he shows it from like just a regular guy, I guess. I mean, for me, it's very familial, but whichever, at Josh Gates, whose expedition unknown, but of another well-known, I mean, he has national television coverage in, I don't know what happened to him. Like, somehow somebody brought him to my attention on national television. I started taping it so I could watch it on DVR. And then all of a sudden the station changed. And then the DVR stopped recording. And then I didn't know how to chase it because I don't have a channel guide. Like it, this whole like this version of technology, it's a bit intrusive. Like to have to sit here and maneuver this without like an assistant. I mean, seriously, this is a lot of work for what? It's like a waste of my life, even further than what's already been like created in a possibility of something called a blood debt, which I had never heard of. And then all of a sudden they brought it up, and I was just like, wait, they believe in what? Possibly?
Josh Gates, you know the name. He's a well-known adventurer and explorer, host of the popular discovery show Expedition.
And again, my whole thing is that why would my ancestors and my forefathers, like what kind of man, if you have a woman, like at some level there is a man, if a woman's being hurt, they will step in and they will try to defend her. That kind of man. Like, where are those men left in the world? Like, why is it left to, like, the shysters and the whatever the other words are for the... I know the word, I'm just not going to say it and give it life and legs of its own. No, thank you.
Unknown. Now, he was planning to take a trip and do a special episode on the same Titan sub that we've all been obsessing over for the last few days. He canceled the trip. Why? Josh joins us now. Thank you so much. Appreciate you taking.
And here's the other thing. At like U.S. Air Force and college, so that the civilian area that does not know that one out of the 5 U.S. components has a college aspect to it. If that college gets breached by employment, like I was not offered, they did not come in, the Royal section or the other one, the U.S. section, they did not like come in and put me in the spot to preserve the equipment and to be part of the Yggdrasil, being that I'm RH sensitive. I would have thought that would have been a nice, like, welcome to the planet that we share together. You are part of our family. But that did not happen necessarily. It happened however it happened, and that's the end of it for the moment. And so, but this U.S. Air Force, they had this one guy, Dave, who was running it in his respectable blue blood, and like in his veins it runs blue. That this man named Dave, and he wore a blue suit. When I go to the airstrip, they call it regalia. I confirm that with the local, so now that's in my vocation or vocabulary of like that's a respectable, agreed upon, whatever. So not that I get to speak to the real thing on a daily basis or like whatever. So so there's that. And then all of a sudden it changed hands from Dave to some other guy. And I don't know the new guy's name. But there's if I Google this US Air Force College, I'm like, wait a minute. He doesn't even look founding father facially correct. Like my facial recognition says Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts of America. This is a real problem, American Legion. Why is it not being addressed correctly? Why is it allowed to sit and fester in the American Federation? Just curious.
You taking this opportunity. Look, this is hard news to take for the families, no question about it. And this isn't about being inappropriate at the wrong time, but the whole question for these families is going to be why. What was your take on the risk to, the cost-benefit analysis?
Yeah, we went up to Ocean Gate headquarters in 2021 and worked alongside Stockton and took a ride in Titan, went down on a shakedown dive on the sub to put it through its paces. So this was just a few months before Ocean Gate was going to take its first season of passengers out to Titanic. And, you know, I had a lot of really interesting experiences with Stockton. It was a thrilling experience. Titan was a really novel vehicle. But by the end of the trip, I really just came to the conclusion that this wasn't for me. And I'm not a guy who says no to dangerous things very easily. At the end of the day, the problem with Titan for me was that there is really nothing to benchmark it against. This is a vehicle that is a one-off. There is nothing else that has ever been built like Titan to go down to Titanic. It is unlike any other sub. Every other sub that goes down to these depths has a titanium or steel alloy pressure sphere. Titan was built using carbon fiber. It's a miraculous material. It's what we build next generation airplanes out of, like the Dreamliner, the A350. And it can be 10 times stronger than steel, but it has to be engineered to really exacting specifications. And it also, there are a lot of mysteries about how this material performs at incredible pressure and in terms of those pressure cycles and fatigue, and in terms of incredibly cold temperatures. And there just was no data here to measure against. So it
Actually, Josh, just so you're totally updated, before my Ocean Gate started, where Jason ripped the children from the only home, rather than taking the Anthony Hopkins Silence of the Lambs story they had me living through, and other scenes from that movie playing out in my very real life, with doppelgangers inside of New York City in various fields. With then me going through tasks almost like a bird on a migration path that I don't necessarily, because birds don't speak, don't know if they know, but there's just this, like, it's time to go. Like, it's the same thing with a woman having a child. There's very few women, like, they give you a window date, and it's like, could be 2 weeks before, could be 2 weeks after. Like, it's a broad range of, like, any day now. But, like, nobody really knows in this part of the world. But I had a conversation with Benjamin next to Jason, and he wanted to ask me some questions. Tia Freya was not around. And I very really told my son, I was like, I don't have anything left to give. I just don't. Like, just physically, mentally, I was in a place I needed Tia Freya ripped out of the house and locked up if they were investigating him for intoxications outside of my control, like, out with him, and then I just go under and I pass out and I'm out cold. Like, I think that they use roofie or Mickey as a code word in the streets of when they do this to a woman. And if that's the case, then why was he not jailed immediately and taken away from my person and leave my child with me? I mean, so I could rebuild. Why did they keep leaving me in the situation where this leech was just taking everything, every dollar I ever had, every dollar I ever earned, and just expecting and putting way too much pressure on me, so I couldn't even do the mothering thing that I wanted or even build my life. It's just, it worked in the opposite effect of where I needed it. But at some level, a blacksmith with velocity going on, it looks like they didn't care. But there are, at some level, there's got to be responsibility. I just don't know whose shoulders it falls on and who actually gives a shit about me, because it's really a gray area this entire time. And it seems to flip-flop at, like, the convenience of, like, the...
So for me, it was like you couldn't even assess the risk.
Now, I don't have to tell you this because I watch your show and this is the space that you've chosen to live in and show the rest of us, but isn't that how it's done? You want to try something that's never been done before, you have to try it. And there's risk.
Absolutely, right? I mean, I don't think you can begrudge. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think you can begrudge, first of all, anybody who chooses to take a trip like this. I totally reject.
Problem is that you put one of the problems or the adversity or diversity. It's like taking a perfectly healthy human and purposely introducing a toxin or a cancer cell and then waiting for it to grow. Why would anybody allow the US aviation with the college attached to it, which then has ties into everything college and university and the way that the humans are speaking in this territory? Why would you ever for 1 second, I'm asking US Treasury at the us that still has 5 founding fathers and then a whatever at the mint, why would you ever allow that level of cell change into that specific, that potential specificity area of study and of whatever, and not rectify it or eliminate that threat the minute it shows up? Why is it allowed to fester and then actually harm the kids in the field that are expecting those in blue blood and in blue uniform to protect the rest of us that don't know and are not that central to the break of intelligence? But it is having astronomical effects over my 1 season, and I'm supposed to have superiority and priority over the rest because of where that break is in the system, that people who knowingly choose that field know far superior to myself. But how does it get rectified and fixed in the correct, nationally secure fashion?
The criticism that people would go down to Titanic. I think that Titanic holds great meaning for many people. Certainly, people like P.H. Nargeolet on board. Titanic was his life. He's one of the world's foremost experts on this wreck. And so, whether it's climbing Everest, whether it's base jumping, whether it's going down to Titanic, if something holds great personal meaning for you, I think you should be celebrated for doing it. And as someone who has gone down to wrecks in submersibles, look, it takes a lot of courage, a lot of determination and bravery to do something like that aboard any submersible. So I think the people aboard Titan should certainly be given a lot of admiration for their courage. I will also say, though, to your question, look, risk is part of the game. I've heard a lot of people today talk about innovation and the leading edge of innovation and the Wright brothers and things like that. I totally agree. I think that huge risks are required when innovating, especially in incredibly difficult environments like this. But we also have to think about the fact that there are passengers aboard. These are members of the public. I know that they're called mission specialists, but look, some of them are, right? Nargeolet is certainly an expert, but we have a young man aboard this sub, a 19-year-old, and certainly a lot of the people who went aboard this sub were, I think, what you would call, members of the public, right? And so I think there is a difference there, and I think that.
And even those words of the public or the private sector, that's completely bastardized with the way that they have this college employed, taking payroll at this point, and then distributing something through labor force and through contracts. And that's concerning, especially considering that in my father's day and age, he was asked to be on boards of things. And in my life frame, I have not. I've been almost shut out, and I don't know why. Other signs of catastrophic failure. And I don't know exactly where in the system, but I know somebody knows.
We have to, it's a really hard moment, Chris, because my heart is absolutely broken like everybody else. I knew Stockton Rush, as I said, also knew Hamish Harding aboard the sub, who's a fellow member of the Explorers Club. So it's just an incredible loss. But I think that alongside that loss, And maybe not today, but I think very soon, we have to ask some real questions about the design and development of Titan and about what choices were made to bring us here and whether those choices were ethical and reasonable.
Look, for me as a lawyer, as long as the information, there was transparency and people knew what they were getting into and the risks, then freedom of choice, freedom to contract is what we're about. But leave us.
That is so interesting. I did not know he was a lawyer. It just looks like he's a journalist. Who knew?
Leave us with this thought, please, if you would, Josh. For those who just think that this is all crazy, everything you do is crazy and it's only a matter of time before you die, what drives people to do things like what you do and what these people in the Titan were about?
Hey, look, I'm a real believer that experiencing the unknown and pushing yourself beyond your limits and doing things that are outside of your comfort zone are really important in life in general. Those things don't have to be going down to Titanic, but I am a believer that we should be challenging ourselves. And I think that if people have something that brings them great personal meaning as a mission, as a goal, I would never begrudge someone who wanted to climb Everest or who wanted to, train for an ultra marathon.
Okay, but as a national security, corporate security for global security, and the founding fathers that are on priority of paper that is circulated inside this territory, fettered American Federation, like to the United States of America, when they come built looking like this, where I'm confused is why in the aviation industry, when it's associated with a college, why would they let anyone into that elite unit trying to build somebody else's, patriarchy? Somebody else's fatherhood? That by itself should be illegal. There is 5 faces to give a broad range of what that one genetic family tree might look like in blue bloods, just so we're crystal clear with all the children and their wild and crazy desires and dreams, to shut them down right quick through the judicial system, the executive and legislative and whatever else, to make sure that the house doesn't become a house party out of control, like some teenagers toilet papering the place and leaving those to inherit the system in absolute chaos and disruption. So there is some kind of requirement, I would assume, in making sure that the powers don't change into the wrong hands, that starts building somebody else's nation ahead of the priority of the interior of this territory, which is very clearly marked on the paper that people find in their wallets, for security reasons, for corporate security, for global security, for national security. And I don't see these things being spoken of, especially not in the appropriate manner. I hear the kids trying to tear it down all the time, but that should be illegal also. I mean, if they're going to use national and social platforms in order to tear down the interior foundations, that's a real sign for concern, for which I'm at the moment just tracking the storm, like, what is going on? Because the nice smiles in the diversion of this board of media, and then I hear the AM stations, not even the FM, but the AM stations, and I'm listening to how they are portraying the real politicians, because they're following them in ways that I don't even know how to begin to follow them, and to hear how others are interacting with them and see a completely different side that I can't see. It's like I see the polished version of humanity. I don't see the ugliness of humanity, although I know it exists. I just don't know where it exists, because in the series of rooms that I've been put between, it's been a different set of circumstances than the actual normal human version.
if those things become important to you at a core level, those are the things that are going to help you grow. Those are the things that are going to bring real meaning to your life. So look, I really believe in things like this. I do think that the idea of taking risks and exploring and being part of an adventure, those things I think are actually kind of critical to the human condition. But, you know, as we've seen here today, those things also can come at a very high cost.
We've heard so many times from people who push the limits that when they're the closest to doing something that could kill them is when they feel most alive. Josh Gates, thank you very much. Appreciate what you do. And I look forward to seeing more of it. Stay safe and thank you for your perspective.
Cheers, Chris. Thank you.
All right, let's take a break.
Now, there's plenty of people on the employ in the US system, which I'm not even commenting on. I'm taking aim very high at one specific area that I'm concerned about how that then is leaching into organized criminal behavior inside of New York, and it seems like it's getting out of control. And I don't know if I can see California, and now they're bringing up Texas. So I'm watching how some of the people in the US employed system are behaving and are very valuable in their intelligence field of the contribution that they have to speak back in a controlled set of circumstances. Like this one particular person that they brought up, I think his testimony is incredibly valuable because I'm not there on the front lines where he is. I'm not seeing what he is seeing, where I am having a real break in and real concern in security issues is at a much deeper and higher level in one specific area that I've seen has changed hands or seen changed faces. And it has paternal, fraternal, and fatherhood concerns, has my radar up, and I don't know how to speak up high enough to the appropriate national authority for the fatherhood of our lands that control our monetary system, somewhere at the US Treasury or at the US Bank, of the us with the visual family tree of epigenetics matching some form of leadership and ultimate authority over those types of board or seat changes back in alignment with something that looks correct for signaling so it doesn't push us in the wrong direction.
Somebody needs to do something about this until, you know, folks in Congress, folks at the White House, folks on Capitol Hill actually put forth an honest effort to address the situation here on the border. It's not just a humanitarian crisis, it's a border security crisis. We've talked about that it's being driven by a policy crisis.
I got to tell you, Ortiz is one of the only guys I've ever heard speak the truth in a sensitive job and not get punished for it. I met him in one of the many times I've been down to the southern border along the Rio Grande Valley. He was then Deputy Chief of U.S. Border Patrol, Raul Ortiz, and I and many people who understand the situation down there were really kind of emboldened by the idea that he was given the top job because he told the truth, okay? And he was chief during one of the largest waves of illegal migration in U.S. history. 32 years of service, and he's going to retire in just a few days. And let me tell you, my brothers and sisters, it's going to be a loss. U.S. Border Patrol Chief Raul Ortiz joins me now. Chief, thank you for what you've done to help keep my family and so many families across the country and your own safe. 32 years, I guess you've decided it's enough.
Yeah, Chris, thanks for having me on the show. And yeah, after 32 years last month, I think it's about time to turn the reins over to the next chief and see what they can do in that leadership role.
The only thing I will try to do to shame you to stay is just when the situation gets worse, the worst we've seen, now you quit. What's going on with you, Ortiz? I thought that you told me that you did this job because it was hard.
Yeah, this month, projected in June, we will have approximately 90,000 apprehensions. We haven't seen a number that low since 2020. So, after May 11th, everybody expected the border to be in total chaos. And what we saw was incline up till May 11th, and then the numbers started to drop. And consistently in a 24-hour period.
Now, where my conversation is, which I'm going to interrupt him for a moment, is these are not immigrants that come from countries that have means, which to me, if you're moving assets, why would you move assets into your living area and living quarters for residency that are going to potentially tank and be a drain on yourself, because now you're paying taxes, you're not even enjoying the benefits of the taxes, you're just being drained like off of your hard work. And over time, in a velocity study, it looks like displacement, and that's what it very really looks like and feels from this position that I've been forced into, not of my own free will. This is like entrapment and enslavement of something that does not want to participate in this fashion, but has no other alternative, because it's like every door has been purposely closed or slammed in my face.
Our teams are apprehending about 3,300 people in a 24-hour period across the whole country. And so I feel like we've got the border in as managed a state as we've had it in years. And so if any time after 32 years, I do think it's a good time to pull the plug.
So here's the question. You're going to be leaving the job. You don't have to worry about what you say. If you were given a blank check and a piece of paper where wherever you wrote down became policy, because as you told me the first time we met, this can be fixed, Chris. Yeah. They don't want to fix it because the problem works too well, and I've been using your line ever since. What could we do if our leaders wanted to that would make a difference in terms of security and building our country the way we need to?
Yeah, one of the things I think we need to continue to invest in is, infrastructure across the southwest border, technology, roads. In some areas, we need to continue to build some wall. But I also think that we need to make sure that we're matching that with the right level of personnel. I've got roughly 3,000 less personnel than I had in 2013. That's not a recipe for success. We need to have the right policies in place. We have migration from a slew of 173 different countries so far. And if our state...
173 different countries. Who's vetting these people? Whose decision is that whether they get to come in or out? Why is it so loosey-goosey? I don't understand. And why am I not being asked or to have me sit on board like my father did before me? Why is none of this at my fingertips or at my access?
If our State Department and our partners aren't working to instill some consequences for some of these demographics, we're not going to be able to repatriate them, and they're going to continue to come. This isn't just a U.S. southwest border problem. We're seeing traffic increases on the northern border in Vermont. We're seeing it in Puerto Rico. We're seeing it in southern Florida. And so this continues to be a challenge for us. But I think we have to sit down, both sides of the aisle, and come up with a solution that allows us to manage the border in a way that you're always going to have migration. We've been around for 99 years. And so migration is just part of the recipe, but it doesn't have to be like it has been for the last few years.
Unless people want to exploit a problem for political purposes and point a finger at each other instead of fixing it. And you've been fighting that fight
out there
with one hand behind your back the entire time. And as you just said, you got less men and women doing the job now than you did 10 years ago. Chief, thank you for your service. No matter what you do in the next chapter of your life, I'm going to call on you for your perspective and your straight talk on this issue because it's been an honor to watch you work, and you have my respect, and you're going to have my admiration no matter where you go. So keep picking up the phone, please.
Thank you, Chris, for having me.
Chief Raul Ortiz.
It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way universe, galaxy is broken. And it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361. So that's what's going on in the local news that they're alerting me of anyhow.